everyone, I'm here to go over 4.g.1, which is geometry, identifying, drawing points, lines, line segments, and rays. I'm going to go ahead and go over these terms in our math notebook. The first one is a point. A point is an exact location in space in geometry, and it's represented by just a dot. You would label this point A by just putting the dot with the letter A underneath it, or you could write it out point A. Either one of these represents a point on a geometric figure. Next, we have a line. A line is represented by a line that goes through 2 points, and it has arrows on the end. And this would be because a line continues forever and ever on either side. Okay, so they have the arrows to show that. We have 2 points on the line, point A and point B. So the way you would write that out would be line with the arrows AB. That would be able to represent a line that makes up a shape, for example. A line is different than a line segment because a line segment has a starting place and an ending place. So a line segment is represented by just a plain line, no arrows, like you see here for line. This is a line segment. It has a start place and a stop place, and this is how you would write it out, AB, and you would just have a line with no arrows above it. The next thing is called a ray. A ray has 2 points on it, A and B, but one of the sides continues on forever. Think of yourself as holding a flashlight. So if you were at point A and you were shining the light out into your yard, it would go on and on forever. So this would be the start place, and then the end place would go on. This would represent ray AB, would just be with the line with 1 arrow on it for AB. That's how you would represent line AB. Okay, here's an example of points on a shape. Points are where lines intersect on any kind of geometric shape. So you can see where any lines come together, they're represented by points. So I could also label these. So if you were doing a sheet or a practice activity, they might say something about, which line segment is the biggest, and you would say from point F to point E. So you would use these lines or these points to help you identify parts of a figure. Down below here, you see an example of lines being used in a geometric shape. You can say that they have arrows at both ends and they keep on going forever. So we know that this is a line and this is a line. This one would not be a line, it would be a ray. And this right here with the 2 ends would be a line segment. So that's identifying lines in the shape. This one here is identifying line segments, and you can see that they have a start and an end point. And so the only 2 that meet that qualification for this figure are the ones that are highlighted. This one would be a ray, and this one would be a line. And of course, the last one is rays. So this is an example of using rays in a geometric figure. You can see the rays can come out both, and they form an angle in between. So these would both be rays. And this one here would be a line. The next part of G1 is angles. I'm going to go over the angles we'll be using in 4th grade. We have a right angle, which is 90 degrees and forms a perfect corner or perfect L. It also is able to make a square in the corner of it. It is worth 90 degrees. You can use the corner of a paper to help you measure that. So if you're not sure, you can always hold a piece of paper right into the corner. And if you can see both edges like that, if you see both black edges on the side, you know it is a 90-degree angle. The next one is acute angle, and you can think of it as, a cute little angle, like a cute little baby. It is a smaller than 90-degree angle. So less than 90 degrees, it's a baby angle. It's called acute. This one is called an obtuse angle, and it is larger than 90 degrees. So it would be like a big fat angle, and a word for big fat is obese. So obtuse can remind us of a big fat angle bigger than 90 degrees. You also are going to need to know that a straight line is actually an angle. From one side over to the other will be 180 degrees. So a straight line angle is worth 180 degrees. And if we put 2 of those together, we would get up to 360. And 360 is how much degrees are in a circle. Another one that we need to remember too is when we put two right angles together, that they also form a straight line. So if I have two right angles here, that's 90 plus a 90-degree angle, and that'll get us back to 180 degrees, which is a straight line angle. So just keep that in mind. Here are some examples in our math notebook of finding these types of angles in figures. Here you can see we've highlighted two examples of right angles. Here you can see we've highlighted examples of acute angles smaller than 90 degrees. Here are larger than 90-degree angles. Still, another part of G1 is types of lines. So again, I'm looking in our math notebook. The first type of line that we need to know the name of is a line that goes long ways. Sometimes we call this the hot dog way. That is also horizontal. And you can remember a horizontal line is like around like the edge where you would see a sunset or a sunrise. That is where the horizon is, and this is a horizontal line. It's kind of laying down. Here is another type of line, which is called a vertical line because it goes up and down. So you can think of your vertical blinds that you might have in your windows. They go up and down to cover the window. So this is a vertical line. These lines that look like they're tipped on their sides, they are called diagonal lines, and they can point either way. Another type of line is parallel lines. Parallel lines run right next to each other with equal amounts of space but never touch. And parallel lines can be horizontal, vertical, or diagonal. You might think of like driving on the road and seeing the lines on the road. Those are good examples of parallel lines. A perpendicular line are lines that cross over each other, and it says that they must form a right angle to be considered perpendicular. So you must have a straight up and down, or if it is turned to the side, you might need to measure it with the corner of a paper to make sure that the corners are all 90 degrees to be called perpendicular lines. If they are not 90 degrees and they are smaller or bigger than a right angle, they would be called intersecting lines. So intersecting lines would have obtuse angles and acute angles in them, but perpendicular lines only have right angles in them. Here's a couple practice questions. One here is talking about parallel lines. You can see that this would not be considered parallel lines because you can see how it's just slightly tipped, and eventually if we kept tracing this out into space, they would cross over each other. So this would not be a parallel line. This down here would actually be a parallel line because you can see they are equally spaced the entire way. So that means that they would definitely be a parallel line. Over here, we have two examples we have to choose from. So perpendicular lines form right angles in the corner, and this one is correct because I can see 4 right angles. So that is considered a perpendicular line. This one here, they are slightly slanted, so that is actually going to be false. These are going to be called intersecting lines instead. Oftentimes you'll be asked questions that you have to identify different lines in a shape. So like you would have to highlight parallel or perpendicular lines in a shape. So that would be something that they would ask us to do in 4th grade.